Greetings everyone out there on the intertubes. This is Doug, the Eclipse Whisperer, with another enlightening video on everybody's favorite software, Epicor Eclipse. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about e-commerce, just some of my thoughts and ideas on it. I start off by saying that these are my opinions, and you have every right to have opinions that do not go along with mine. But here it is, such as it is. So, obviously, Eclipse does not have any native support for any type of e-commerce. Keeping in mind this is a 30-year-old plus piece of software. It came into being years before the internet was even publicly released. So the designers, e-commerce was the last thing on earth they would have thought of, short of maybe being invaded by reptilians. Also, the technology that Eclipse is built on, which is the Rocket Universe database, which is a PIC system, predates SQL database technology by at least a decade. And even though it is very reliable database software, it's not quite up to the task of a modern e-commerce type of system. The multi-value database is good at keeping track of things and being low maintenance, but it is slow, to say the least. Then, of course, trying to bolt on 3 decades of technologies that have evolved and changed over the years onto a current paradigm is crazy. Now, Epicor does have a companion product which they call the Epicor Commerce Connector, which they sell. They're very, very proud of that, so it's very expensive. And it is supposed to allow you to bolt onto a web e-commerce front end. Namely, it only supports one, as the last I knew, which is a product called Magento, which is currently owned by Adobe. Magento was originally designed to be a standalone e-commerce platform and not to be bolted into an ERP system. So the Epicor Commerce Connector kind of gets into the back end of Magento, and it's a weird piece of middleware that tries to translate between the two systems, and it's a Frankenstein monster if ever I've seen one. So, boy, everybody wants to increase sales. If you're a small distributor and you're not into e-commerce, I'm sure you're thinking to yourself that we've missed the boat and we really need to spend money on it. My opinion is that if you're a small electrical distributor, do not get into e-commerce. It is not like your primary business. It is a whole different breed of cat. If you go down that path of chasing the e-commerce thing, you are going to be unhappy with the results, normally. If you try and do something like an Epicor Commerce Connector plugged into Eclipse on the back end with a Magento front end, you are going to incinerate vast amounts of money and lots of time, and probably drive a few of your developers to suicide or at least suicidal tendencies. And the end result will be something that you're not quite happy with. My opinion of this is, well, my experience with working with, at the time, All Sail Electric to help produce this e-commerce site that uses the Epicor Commerce Connector and Magento to plug into Eclipse. I'm not a web developer, right? I'm an Eclipse guy, and so this was outside of my skill set. Most of the graphics and the HTML and all that good stuff was done by other people, but I helped provide some of the nuts and bolts and some of the expertise to try and make it work. It looks good. It doesn't work very well. It is maddeningly slow because it's trying to, every time you click on something, it's having to go through a piece of middleware to Eclipse to get some piece of relevant information to augment the information that's already in Magento and render. It is torturously slow. Not to mention that, um, e-commerce is not all one thing. You don't put a billboard up there on the internet and just everyone comes to it. There's a whole search engine optimization, there's a whole marketing type of thing, and who are you going to sell to? I mean, typical e-commerce sites are B2C, business to customer, if you will, retailing. Well, most distributors are not retailers. They don't really know how to play in that pool very well, and a site that's designed for an ordinary customer, someone who ordinarily would be buying things maybe off of Amazon. The whole design paradigm and the constraints and the customer service, the whole architecture of how the e-commerce site works would be completely different from what the expectations of an electrician would have. So who are you trying to sell to? And if you think you're going to build one thing that makes everybody happy, well, as the old saying goes, if you try and be all things to all people all the time, you're going to be nothing and to nobody. So you don't do it. Don't go that route. If by some reason or other I haven't dissuaded you from trying to bolt on e-commerce, then really kind of think about it as a whole separate business that you're starting, that it shares, maybe it shares the warehouse and maybe some of the processes with your existing business, but it really is its own thing. You're going to have your own type of customer service people, your own ordering and processing and returns process and all that good stuff, and you don't want a really solid connection to Eclipse between what happens on the e-commerce and what happens in your normal counter customers and deliveries. If you're really sure that you want to jump all the way into e-commerce and you want a completely integrated system, I would never suggest to anybody trying to use Eclipse as a back end and the Epicor Commerce Connector and Magento on the front end. You're talking, three things that were never really designed to work as an integrated unit. And all the little gotchas and oh by the ways and we didn't think of this will cost you dearly. If you really need an integrated system, then God forbid I should even suggest the type of thing, you should consider getting a whole different ERP system. And there are not a lot that are up to the task of doing e-commerce quite to what you need. I think probably the only one that I think might do the trick, and I'm not entirely sure, is a relatively new open source program called Odoo. And it's pretty sophisticated and evolving, and you might be able to make something like that work. I can make these recommendations because I am quite sure absolutely no one listening to this will take my advice. No one's going to ditch Eclipse after however many decades you've been running it and move their entire system, their company, to Odoo just to do e-commerce. I get that. You're thinking, investment and old codgers and all the expensive retraining, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's fine, and that's true, but, my advice. So, now that I know nobody out there is going to take my advice, here's some of my suggestions on if you're you feel like you absolutely have to get into the e-commerce thing, then this is the route I would take. Since you're not going to go to Odoo, you look at a simple independent platform. Shopify is a fairly popular one out there. where it's an all-in-one, kind of e-commerce system. It's not going to have any hooks to your ERP directly, so order processing is you're going to have a group of people that are pulling the orders off of this thing and re-entering them in Eclipse to complete the process. Yeah, well, we don't want to do that because that's going to cost money. Well, then, too damn bad. It's about the only thing that's going to work with any type of reliability. You might be able to use the new Eclipse APIs to maybe hire someone to do some type of integration to import orders off of Shopify or my preferred platform, BigCommerce, and bring them in as a quote and then complete the processing through Eclipse. That may be a possibility, but you're looking at big bucks, I'm sure. I've not heard of or know of anybody that can do the type of integration that would be necessary. There are a couple companies that promise they can do this stuff. I've not seen anything that that I would spend the money on. Once again, this is just my opinion. Now, I should also mention at this point that you notice when I was mentioning about platforms, I didn't mention anything like Amazon or some of the other platforms out there, or God forbid eBay, and there's a reason for that. Yeah, it looks like it's simple, low-hanging fruit. I guarantee you want to lose your mind and probably a lot of money. Try playing on platforms like this. The competition is fierce. Amazon is going to impose a whole bunch of things upon you that are going to be hard to live up to. The return rate is crazy. You're going to have to share a fair percentage of your profits with Amazon on the sales. And yeah, it's just ugly. Can money be made? Yeah, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure it's worth it. Certainly you're going to question it, so I don't even talk about it. I don't even go there. But a platform like Shopify or BigCommerce, you could maybe make something like that work. Now here is an example of BigCommerce. I should say, here's some of the pitfalls if you're going to do an independent platform like this. First off, you're going to have to come up with quality product information to put into the e-commerce platform, whichever one it is. That's going to be real hard to do. Almost any catalog service like Idea or Trade Service or Unilog, you're going to be spending a pretty decent chunk of money for that information, and more than likely the information is not going to be in a form that's ready to be just dumped right onto these platforms. So you're going to be spending a lot of time trying to massage that data into some type of shape that doesn't look too horrendous on your platform. And of course, you're going to have product categorizations, taxonomy. You're going to have to figure out pricing. Also, keep in mind your vendors are going to get pissy with you because a lot of them do not want you selling their products on an e-commerce site. They might want to change your pricing, or they may not want you to advertise any pricing at all, or they will only let you advertise the MAP pricing, the manufacturer's advertised price, and nothing else. Once again, yeah, it's an ugly, polluted minefield. You're going to have a lot of problems syncing data. Keep in mind a platform like this, like BigCommerce, the order is going to be taken here, the credit card charge is going to be taken here. Someone or groups of someone are going to have to, log into this platform and take the sales order, the invoices off of this system, and then re-enter it again into Eclipse. You're going to have a lot of problem of the data that is in here is going to have to be able to be easily translated for rekeying into Eclipse. So there has to be some form of synchronizing of data. Damn this thing. The fields of information that you find in a product here in BigCommerce is going to be very, very different from the fields of information that you're going to use in a product record in Eclipse. I know you're going to try and take shortcuts and go, well, I want 150,000 things on my e-commerce site, but I don't feel like entering all of those products into Eclipse until I actually sell one. And you think you're very, very clever because you've saved time, and look at all that money I've saved because I'm not duplicating work. Well, guess what you did? Now almost every sales order, or every other sales order, every third sales order that your data entry people go to enter in, they're going to hit a brick wall because they're going to enter in a product that doesn't exist. And now you need a whole process there for creating records into the system with all the right parameters, and you're probably going to involve your purchasing agents in this, and they're not going to be happy about this shit. So God's help you. Something like the product data warehouse in Eclipse may help you to synchronize, but you're looking at a lot of auto manual processes of trying to come up with some standard quality of data between the two different platforms with enough of the fields information that both require that you can backfeed in through a PDW or create product records manually. And it is going to be an unholy pain in the ass. Not to mention pricing. That how are you going to harmonize and synchronize pricing between the two platforms? Because that may be an issue. You can have like with a platform like BigCommerce, you could have a restricted access. You could have levels of pricing, however limited, so you could make it more of a contractor site rather than open to a public site. But now you're going to have the problems with what if the customer is a contract customer? What if there's special pricing on a certain set of items but not others? And trying to, once again, synchronize that pricing between the two systems is going to be ugly. So actually, creating the site in something like a BigCommerce, they have pre-designed templates that are inexpensive or free that you can use. It has some pretty clever, simple customizations that work pretty well. It has a good search function. There are some SEO functions built in. You've got the credit card processor, that's kind of built in, although limited as to payment processors that you can use. It's a pretty good thing. It's not really designed for having a lot of SKUs though, and it once again, as a distributor, you're probably thinking to yourselves, well, I don't know what's going to sell. Let's just put everything in there. I don't think you want to go there. I think you want to try and stick with stuff that you're familiar with selling, stuff that you know how it moves. And put it out there, because as I said, the biggest problem is going to be product information. Getting it, cleaning it up, importing it into that, synchronizing it with Eclipse, constantly updating the pricing, and going with that. If you try and dump 250,000 products into BigCommerce and then think you're gonna keep that all in sync right off the bat with maybe 2 part-time employees, boy, are you in for a surprise. Once again, this is going to be you're creating a whole parallel processing system that only at some later steps in the process does it even interact with Eclipse, and there's almost no way of automating it, so it's going to be manual. A lot of human labor that's going to go into trying to process this stuff. So there's a fair bit of overhead to e-commerce. It's not just flicking a switch. I know, like BigCommerce, $80 to start. Yeah, that $80, that's the least amount of money you're going to spend. Trying to acquire and clean up and maintain the product data on the platforms is going to eclipse whatever you spent for just getting a little bit of graphics work and the template and the monthly site stood up. Once you have something like this up, once you've done that expense, and I'd say even for a simple site, you better expect to be spending at least 6 months to get ready. Can you kick something out in a couple hours? Yeah. Will it work well? No. Will it cause you a whole bunch of problems and make you want to tear your hair out? Absolutely. Uh, yeah, you can do something quick and dirty, and you will pay the consequences. Um, so, plan on 6 months, plan on, really thinking about this strategy. Think about how your existing employees are going to handle a whole secondary process. Think about how you're going to handle returns, because when you're dealing with online sales, oh my God, the returns, especially if you're, dealing with retail now, and that's something most distributors suck at doing returns properly anyway. Now you're gonna be inundated if you think you're gonna just take your existing employees and their usual routines and just slap this on them on top, and that they're not going to quit and go work at McDonald's because it's less stressful and the pay's higher. Once again, you're in for a surprise. Um, anyway, I know I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but I'm sounding like a Debbie Downer. There is a lot of moving parts to this. Once you get this thing up, it's going to take a lot of man hours to keep it maintained. Prices change. If you're a quasi-honest distributor, then you're gonna want to try and keep the stock quantity information kind of pretty close to right, and that means someone's gonna have to run reports on Eclipse on the inventory balances, and at some point, probably every once a week or something like that, you'll have to update the quantities in BigCommerce. Someone's got to have to do that. It's not press the F99 magic, read my mind, and do what I want, even though I can't really think of what it is, instantaneously key. It takes people time. Quite often, if they're a little groggy, if they're running a little late, they're distracted, they might screw it up the first time, and they might have to do it a couple of times. So there's going to be hours that is going to be involved in just the maintenance, not to mention, as I said, the having to rekey everything for sales order entry. And then you're also going to have to think about how are you going to book this, right? How are the sales recognized in Eclipse? Is it a different area? How are you going to report on it? What type of profit margins are you going to try and maintain? How are you going to compete? Because you're not the only one trying to sell a Lutron dimmer online. There are hundreds of people out there that have the same damn product that are probably within 3% of the same damn price that you're willing to pay for it, or put it out there for. So how are you going to attract customers online? If you're a small distributor, you're not used to thinking that way. Search engine optimization, and maybe having to hire a marketing company, maybe doing social media campaigns. Once again, I mean, you're looking at a substantial investment and increase in your staff, and it's going to make your day-to-day business very chaotic. And once again, I mean, if you're thinking of putting an e-commerce site up there for your contractors to use, they won't. A small distributor, for the most part, is a relationship business. You have people that are used to coming into the counter area at 6 o'clock in the morning on their way to the job site and talking to their guy and getting their special price, getting their truck loaded up and out the door, that type of thing. Or calling up someone when they're out in the field with a cell phone and talk to their inside guy and, hey, I need the LMQ 360 and that purple chingadera that you sold me like last Thursday. Need a couple more of those, that type of thing. That's not something you can do with an e-commerce site. Maybe in a few years in the future, when artificial intelligence gets bolted into these things, maybe a little bit better. But it's not gonna take the place of that customer relationship between the inside sales guy and the customer, like you have in a normal distributor. So yeah, get it out of your head that your existing customers are going to be going to your website and scrolling through this stuff on their cell phone while they're standing out in the mud at the site. trying to do self-checkout, they're going to want positive confirmation as well. You don't get that from e-commerce site when they talk to their guy and they say, I need it here tomorrow at 5 a.m. Well, you're not going to get that positive confirmation off of a platform like Shopify or BigCommerce. Amazon is pretty good at keeping you abreast of when it's going to show up, sort of, but it's not the same thing. Not the same thing. So once again, this is a whole different type of business, and there's a lot of ways of going wrong with this and pissing off a lot of people and wasting a lot of money on something you shouldn't probably have done in the first place. But as I said, if you got your heart set on it, these are the things that you're going to have to consider: is the product information, and having to rekey in the orders, and how to handle returns, and how to drive sales to your e-commerce platform are all the serious things that you're going to have to think about if you're planning on going along with this type of thing. Now, one of the tools that can kind of help you a little bit with the managing the product information is, I've mentioned it before in other videos, about a product information management platform. And one that I have some interest in is Akeneo. At least I think that's how it's pronounced. Akeneo? I don't know. I'm not even sure what country this thing came from. You can, if you have a catalog service that you subscribe to, most especially Idea or Unilog, they have their own type of PIM platform, and if you're already spending the money, then that platform may be sufficient. If you're cheapskates and you're not paying for those catalog service platforms, I guarantee you, if you've got an e-commerce site and you're trying to put 80,000 products on this site, and you're trying to manage all of that information, and you're trying to synchronize between two dissimilar platforms like Eclipse and an e-commerce platform, having a middle ground repository where you can hold that information and service the needs of both platforms, and have multiple users go in and be able to do reports on the quality of the data and do spot checks and corrections as needed. Something like an Akeneo or Akeneo product can be very helpful to manage the chaos. Once again, this is not a press the F99 key, read my unconscious intents, and magically bring it into being. This product information manager platform takes a lot of forethought. It's not a lot of upfront expense, but it's going to take a little forethought to set up properly, and you're going to be spending a lot of time getting the data in there. And of course, you still have the problem of where you're going to get the data from, and how you're going to ensure the quality of the data. So it doesn't solve all problems, but at least it gives you a platform to work on the problems. I guess you could put it that way. Now, as I mentioned before, I think 3 years ago now, Epicor started writing a companion product, which it's now, I think they've changed the name 2 or 3 times, but essentially it's the Eclipse APIs, and they're trying to create application programming interfaces. I think it uses Python to interact with generally, to be able to bolt external things and interact with Eclipse. As of the last of my current knowledge, it was very limited in what it could do. It's a little wonky to work with, and it's not particularly fast. So maybe by now, or maybe at some future point, the Eclipse APIs are worth the expense you're going to spend, and the cost of the programmers that you're going to have to hire to figure out how to use that. And maybe they're using the APIs. There's going to be some ways of creating never an automatic process, but a more semi-automatic process of trying to get those sales orders and information from BigCommerce into Eclipse. Once again, because of the limitations of the Eclipse database and data translation, and people using websites, expect instantaneous response, millisecond response after the clicks. You are never going to make a bi-directional hook between Eclipse and something like a BigCommerce, so that the response and the data is real time. Get that out of your head right now. The best you can hope for is a one-way type of thing to try and streamline the sales order processing. As I said, maybe at some point finding a way of taking the sales order electronically from BigCommerce or Shopify and bringing it into Eclipse as a quote rather than having to manually retype everything. So that would save a lot. But at current moment, I don't really know how you could do that. Only that with using the Eclipse APIs, it might be possible. Anyway, so that is my 2 cents worth on e-commerce on Eclipse. I'm sure this is not what you wanted to hear. I'm sure absolutely everyone listening to this is going to vehemently disagree with me and assume that I have my head up my ass, and that's your right to think so, and maybe I do. I can only give you my opinion from my experience, such as it is, and take it for what it's worth. If you're dead set, you got your heart set on going to e-commerce, just keep in mind it's not going to be as cheap, or as easy, or as fast as the salespeople you're talking to are going to try and convince you. So let the buyer beware. And with that, I will end this introduction on e-commerce. There will be some more videos that will talk about data conversion, that type of thing, but I don't know what kind of an audience that will appeal to. Anyway, everyone have a good day, and thank you for your time and attention.